stoked.
Yeah, I wanted to congratulate you on the album. It's a great one.
Thank you so much, man. I appreciate it.
I wanted to know if you could speak to me on a couple of the songs on the album, some of my favorites.
Yeah. Hey, you think we can get the volume up at all by chance?
Let me see what I can do here.
I just can't hear you very well.
I'm up all the way.
Okay. I'll play through, man. Old metalhead, you know.
Okay.
Whee!
I wanted to ask you about the title track.
Cool.
Could you give me some background on the song?
On the song Host Desecration in particular?
Yeah.
Well, it's about the old Christian teaching that if you if someone who is not of the Christian faith eats communal wafers or drinks the communal wine, that they're actually inflicting bodily harm on Jesus. So what's that? Now my brain's frying right now. My first degree was in history, but uh, was transmogrification or whatever, the changing of the wafers and wine to the body and blood of Christ. So if you're not a follower and you're to take part in that, you're actually causing bodily harm on Jesus. So there was one time in particular, and I can't remember what country it was in, there was 3,000 people executed at one time for that crime.
Wow.
So it's been kind of fun for me to just take historical elements, we grew up in, I grew up as like Merciful Fate, and I always liked the kind of anti-religious tones and things, but I never took this stance of like, oh, Christian, Satanist, whatever it is, I just like, the historical aspect and kind of the realistic aspect, but not everybody wants you to stand on a stump post and tell them about things, so I tried to mask it in horror or just things that it's not like too on the nose, like listen to what I'm telling you, it's like here's an interesting piece of history, and if you are interested in history, then you might be enlightening, and if it's not, then okie dokie.
I also wanted to ask you about The Man Who Could Not Sleep.
That was the song that started Sleepless. So just, man, I used to own a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu academy. I was having a really unhealthy working relationship with my business partner and my daughters. Are you still there? Still there?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, now I got volume too. And killer. So testing. My daughter, I have a 24-year-old who's basically on the streets and addict, and just a lot of stuff was going on. There's a lot of pretty deep, really deep period of anxiety and depression, and kind of not knowing where I was going with things. And Dead Conspiracy wasn't doing anything, so this like musical hole was in, this kind of void, and I was writing, but I just didn't know what was going to happen with it. And that song came together with my drummer when we realized that, like, is interesting. I mean, I don't want to get long-winded, but like we would start to write and we go, let's write some death metal today. And then we'd start and it wouldn't quite be death metal. And then we go, let's do some thrash. Let's thrash it up. It's not really, straight up thrash. Like, we just realized, dude, we're just doing what we do. How about we just don't call it anything and we'll just write? We don't know who's going to sing on it. We don't know what it's going to be. It'll probably be a thrash singer because that's what we'll go back to every time. And let's just do it. And we just started writing, but I wasn't sleeping at all. And I'm a full-time vintage comic book dealer is my profession. So there's a 1951, 52-ish whatever comic book with the title story, and it was The Man Who Could Not Sleep. And there's these ghouls carrying this guy, like, and he's laid out and his eyes are wide open, furrowed brow. And I just looked down, I was like, oh, that's me. Like feeling like there's like spirits, demons or whatever carrying me around. Just some days I just felt like that, like I was in a vortex, and and but I just kept on writing, and I was like, I'm just gonna let this take me where it takes me, and I'll just write lyrics about it, and I'll write music, and we'll just see if it's kind of therapeutic. And it turned into Sleepless. So
I also wanted to ask you if you could pick your favorite track, what would it be and why?
man, these are awesome questions. Man, I'd have to go through the tracks again. Every time I listen to them, it takes me back to a different spot. The Man Who Could Not Sleep was really a big deal to me in that the first time I wrote a chorus, like I guess we can consider like a real like wrote thinking I'm gonna have a chorus. Like even in Dead Conspiracy, people always come to our shows and say like, man, it's kind of like going to an Aussie show. Like you guys are death metal, but you have like this rock and roll song structure: verse, chorus, bridge, solo, verse, chorus, whatever, out. Very rock and roll styling. I'm like, that's what I always want. Like I want you to be able to remember the songs. But I'm like, now I'm gonna try to write a chorus, and still didn't know who was gonna sing on it. Once it became Kevin, it was apparent that I was going to have real choruses and this is going to be cool. So to me, that holds a special place for that, and that it was also the first song that I really put together for this band. I had other riffs already aside. In the old days in Dead Conspiracy, Chris, my guitar player, who's the original founder of the band, would always stop me if I wrote something that didn't fit in the path of Dead Conspiracy. Nope, that one's too complicated. You can't write a riff in 7 or 11 in Dead Conspiracy. Like, that The Man Who Could Not Sleep starts in 11. And I was like, I'm going to write a song in 11 because I watched the video of the drum auditions for Dream Theater.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just tripping out on how the way they talk to each other. Like, okay, it goes 11, 3, 8, or whatever. I'm like, what the hell does that mean? So I'm like, I'm Googling like on YouTube, how do you count in 11? And this guy was explaining like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm like, and I was like, okay. And I got this kind of War Machine beginning. I'm like, oh, this is cool. So it just turns into what it is. So that one's pretty special to me. Some parts I just love, like I love on The King Is Not There. I love the lyrics on that one. I wrote that about a little quip I read on the internet about a guy's theory that Jesus actually believed that he was going to be king and was shocked, and that's why he would have allegedly said, "Why have you forsaken me?" Because he believed he was going to be the king. He was going to overthrow, and the leadership and become the king. So, the lyrics on that, I mean, and I'm trying to remember those, but some of those, just, they just really stick to me as being killer. And the way Kevin sang them, I went to go pick up lunch and I came back and he had like the second verse down, and it reminded me of something from almost like the phrasing from I think it's Woodstock or like one of the old like Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young type. Just the phrasing, like there's this phrasing. I was like, dude, that phrasing is killer. It's like, it's metal, but it has this like timeless feel to it. And then that blew me away. I'm like, oh my god, this is like my favorite moment. I think in the video, like the scarecrow. It's the part about the scarecrow looms, and anyway, that part. So the part about the scarecrow looms, that's the part that trips me out. I just can't believe we wrote that. So it makes me super happy to hear it.
Would you say that most of your lyrics are based upon history or historical events?
A lot. I mean, blood libel was another one right away. I mean, that one's most people know about the blood libel, I guess, taking the blood of Christians by Jews again to get power. I always felt like Nosferatu and these early vampires were very much like caricatures of Jews, hook nose and the whole like this whole look. And I was like, and that was it was so that historically to me like really resonated. I was like, wow, it's crazy. And there's actually old paintings of this, of Christians strapped up and they're poking them in the guts or whatever, and stealing the blood to rub on the wombs of pregnant women. So that's the lyrics on that, right? It starts right away. Oh, the blood of Christian whores brings me comfort. So I'm like, I wrote that on the airplane. I was like, God, that sounds like some satanic vampire song. But it was just about another piece of history, and history is sometimes super ugly. so, and so, I mean, most of those, and sometimes it's just me being preachy, I guess, on my own way, or just thinking about things. Mushroom clouds at night. I got the idea from the author Sam Harris. Beginning of one of his books, he talks about, if there was a nuclear bomb, I'm paraphrasing, that exploded over New York City, there would be a percentage of people in this country who would see a silver lining in the subsequent mushroom cloud because it would signal the return of Jesus and the rapture. And I was like, that's fucking morbid. And I'm
Yeah.
like, and so, oh, silver linings, do you see him in the mushroom clouds at night? I haven't sent it to Sam Harris yet, but I will. Stuff like that. Deluded hordes, another one is kind of like that. That was about, I think it's more of a Muslim based attack on my part. Oh, so yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah, I guess so. The uh what the hell's the I have one about Joseph Smith too. um Man, I'm losing my mind. What's the track called? Do you know? It's Diviner of Truth.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that was the thinking about Joseph Smith with his starting out with his seer stones and dowsing rods, trying to help people find gold on their property, and he was arrested for defrauding the public. And then went on to make a church like everybody did. Actually, in that period, there was thousands of churches popping up with people mixing Native American culture with Christian iconography and you know that type of thing. So I've been super fascinated with the history of Mormonism. But yeah, so there's another one. I don't know. It's making me think about my kids always saying, "Why do you listen to Kiss? All they sing about sex." And I'm like, "That's not true." And I'm like, oh, "Wait a minute. I guess it is true." So, I guess it is true. I guess maybe that's what I read about, religious history. So there's got to be some other things. Yeah, I mean, it's all mixed in with like anxiety, depression, and then my love for like horror and things like that, and just kind of mixing it up and trying to make it not sound too preachy, like I said.
I grew up a Kiss fan. My first band that really turned me into metal was Kiss. I remember when Destroyer came out in '76 and I saw the artwork and I was like, I gotta check this out,
That
and
was
changed me.
that was me too, man. I mean, it was like seriously like 9 years. I was 9, so and I moved. My parents split up one of the million times they split up, and kid, I met this kid right away, and he's like, "You listen to Kiss?" I'm like, "Nope, should I?" And he's like, "Come over to my house." So he put on Kiss Alive. I heard Rock Bottom, and I was like, "What just happened?"
Right.
Mom, we have to go to the store. I have to find me the Kiss record. So that was it. Of just like so many of us, just that was it catapulted the whole idea that music was more than just something you listen to. Like
Sure.
I remember listening to Foreigner, and I listened to the Stones, and my mom was into like the Fugs and the Mothers of Invention, and she's like a underground hippie, and my dad was kind of wimpier. He listened to like the Herman's Hermits and stuff like that, but then he got into like Joni Mitchell and the Grateful Dead and all that. So I listened to everything as a kid. My aunts were all into Motown, and but we were all it was a very musical family in that we listened to a lot of music. Not a lot of people played around me, so I just had to pick it up. I put my bass on layaway, mowed yards for a summer to pay it off, and started writing original songs immediately. It's like I want to be on stage.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the first time I saw Ace perform, that's what led me to pick up a guitar. I'm just watching his stage presence. I thought, yeah, this is it.
Dude, I'm taking my son to see Ace on Thursday.
Really?
Yeah, stoked. My kid was like into like, Gangnam Style and all that stuff. And like when he was growing up, and he's like, Dad, just listen to this horrible music. And now now he's got like the full battle vest, and he sells vintage clothing, and he's got, he's like, Dad, I'll trade you this Morbid Tales album he traded me for a Carpathian Forest shirt I had, traded for an original Celtic Frost Morbid Tales vinyl. I'm like, done deal. I'm like, I'm not gonna wear that shirt. There's such cool stuff, but that's my 21-year-old, so I'm pretty stoked on that.
I also wanted to ask you about the album. Could you talk to me about the album artwork and the artist that was involved?
I'm getting a lot of questions about that, which is so cool, man. I mean, TJ Barber deserves, that guy he's brilliant. He hit me up when Dead Conspiracy was broken up and we hadn't got back together. So it was like 2008 or 2009 on MySpace. He's like, do you need artwork for your band? Like, well, I don't really have a band right now, but I will soon. I'll keep you in mind. And at that time, I opened my Brazilian Jiu Jitsu Academy. I was like, hey, let me hit this cat up. He does shirts, and I was like, hey, can you want to do something for my gym? So anyway, hooked up with this dude he's in like Pennsylvania or something. It's like, who was the guy that couldn't cut his hair? Was it Samson or one of those guys? Like,
Right.
I've I've never talked to TJ on the phone. I've never met him in person. And we've been like buddies, like talking to each other since literally 2009. And he's done all the artwork for Dead Conspiracy, all this stuff for my gym. He's helped me design like uniforms. He's helped me with, I mean, he's done everything. And with this band, I'm like, I got to have TJ. I just said, listen, dude, I want you to listen to the album. I sent him the music in advance. I sent him some lyric videos, and I said, he's a metal guy too. Doesn't look like it really, but he worked for a commercial art firm, and I sent him I sent him all this stuff, and uh he came back with that cover, and I was just blown away, man. I'm like, I don't know if everybody will get it, but they certainly seem to be. People are like, what is up? Like, this cover seems to say it all.
Yeah. And the artwork is just phenomenal. I mean, I'd love to have it on my wall.
Nice. Nice. I'll get you a color print, man. It's pretty cool. I'm trying to figure out how to get that onto a shirt. It's gonna be pretty expensive. There's so much color, I guess, with it, but
Yeah.
but
It makes it key though, no
thank
doubt.
you. Every time you look at it, you see something different. I mean, there's so many things going on, like that. The woman in the background is kind of like that noose that's kind of going like floating out, and then the way the demon or whatever is removing the face, it just says so many different things. There's like a subtle tear. There's like, I'm like, this just speaks to all the like anxiety, depression, like darkness, but I still feel there's a sense of positivity somehow with it. It just trips me out. It's very cool.
And
Yeah.
is there a tour in the works?
Oh man, there it's in the plan. It's just we need two more members. So I wrote everything myself along with Eric, my drummer. And like I said, we to be short about it, I guess we were, because I get long-winded, I apologize. We didn't know who was gonna sing. Kevin is one of my oldest, dearest friends. Um, he owns Opal Studios, where I've recorded with all my projects, and he just finished doing Paul Gilbert's Werewolves of Portland album, produced that and engineered it, and he's done all kinds of everything from like Panzer God, Poison Idea to like famous blues artist Amy Mann. Like, he's full-time engineer, and but in high school he was like the Michael Schenker, Dokken, Ingve guy, and I was the RKL, Agnostic Front,
Mhm.
Exodus, Venom guy. And we'd all hang out at the lunch table and shoot the shit, and they'd yell at me about how I need to learn the modes, and I was like, you guys need to write original songs. And and but we've all grown up together, and it was like we were in the studio, and I was on like song 4, I think, and I'm like, we need somebody to sing us. I go, dude, what do you think about singing? He goes, I had played Symphony X for him one day. and he heard like how they played like thrashier type technical music but with clearer vocals, and he said in his own mind he thought he heard I could do this, and then but he never said anything. And I asked him, you want to do it? And he goes, yep, I'm in. And I'm like, shit, really? I'm like, we're not going to have to go find a death metal singer for this, so that was it. So now he and I are starting to co-write. We have writing days, which tomorrow's a writing day. I've already got 4 songs, the guitar tracks down. I've got guitar tracks for 4 songs. I'm putting the 5th one down tomorrow. Co-writing with Kevin and with Eric. But so long story long, we need a bassist and a lead guitarist. Kevin's a phenomenal guitarist. He played all the leads on the record, but he wouldn't want to sing and play guitar, nor would I want him to.
Right.
He's a front man, he's a good front man. I mean, he sings in a band called Stone in Love, this Journey tribute band that does like all the big like conventions and things like that. So like he's been a front man forever, and so we need a good lead guitar player. We need a good bassist who want to do, who want to take the time to learn these songs. I mean, it's not 12 bar blues. So
Right.
and when you're not 20 years old and you got 6 days a week to rehearse in a band, it can be harder. So yeah, so that's the plan though. I want to be in Europe. I want to do a couple weeks at least in Europe. I want to do some festival dates, and I mean, try not to be presumptuous that anyone cares. Like, does anyone want to see us live? Starting to sound like it. I'm getting pretty stoked on this, and I'm actually just getting really excited that saw the review from Metal Forces yesterday. That was really cool. I'm like, yeah, so I'm feeling like we're going to be on the road at some point fairly soon. And I've got a couple local musicians who are killer, well-rounded rock, metal, punk guys that could do it, that can play all the different styles it takes to do it. Because you got to be able to down pick like a punk guy, you got to be able to double pick like you're in Slayer, and you got to be able to groove, and you got to be able to play leads. So it's not an easy one for, I think, for a lot of people, to play the different styles that the insanity of Sleepless is.
Mhm. And I also wanted to ask you, on a personal level, if you could tell me your proudest moment as an artist.
This album, does that count?
Absolutely.
This is me on the plate, brother. I mean, this is it. Like I said, I mean, Dead Conspiracy is right across, tattooed across my back, and it's been my band since '87. One of the early underground death metal bands, and the moments in that band were so amazing. But it's definitely been a very linear route now. Like keep the course of what the band does, and I'm proud of that, and I'm proud of being able to stick to that. But this stuff has always been welling in me, and I never knew how I was going to get it out. And it's me, Eric's drums, Kevin's style and his vocals was able to finally bring out all these things that were been inside of me that I really musically that I just wanted to have come out, and I just don't want it to end now. This album to me feels like the beginning of me on a musical plate, you know. And so there you go.
And speaking on that as well, um, also on your musical journey, if you could tell me what's the best advice that's been given to you along the way.
Mostly stuff from Kevin. He's a taskmaster in the studio, man. I mean, best advice. No one seemed to give me any other than the arguments in high school about learning the modes or whatever. I still don't feel like that's great. I think that what I say, like Kevin told me one day sitting down, I was tracking some guitars, and he goes, "You ever just learn all the AC/DC songs?" I'm like, "What? No." He goes, "You just need to study Angus Young." No, sorry, Malcolm Young. You need to study Malcolm Young's rhythm playing. Just do that. And so it's been like little things, like that, like learn Malcolm Young stuff, learn the basic, like what makes rock and roll, and it carries into any style that you want to do. I started taking drum lessons 6 months ago, and I work every day on my drums, and I'm like trying to learn all of Shout at the Devil, the whole album right now on drums, like, but it's just my drum teacher's like, yeah, people come in, they want to learn how to play Meshuggah, in their first month of playing drums. I'm like, man, you got to play Tommy Lee first. You got to play Malcolm Young first. You know, guys, if you love bands like Merciful Fate, like it started with, is go back to where it started and learn that. I mean, I don't think people need to spend. I'm giving advice now. So for me, like that's it. Just like people telling me to go back to the basics to make myself better, because I felt like I was really lacking in so many areas, and I still am. But it's a daily struggle, man. I do Paul Gilbert's online guitar lessons, and they're phenomenal because he doesn't sit there and preach about scales and stuff. He just teaches things that are applicable today, and like, listen how this sounds, it friggin' rocks, and I'm like, oh yeah, it does. And I took that technique and I wrote a song today, and then I took the next technique and I threw it another song. Like, that's one thing I've been able to do over time, was like take little bits and pieces and turn it into something that's me. But I don't know if I'm even answering the question, brother.
Yeah, absolutely. I also wanted to ask you, when you do have free time, do you have any hobbies that you're into? I know you like comics.
um So yeah, I'm a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, but I haven't, since I sold my gym, I haven't really been practicing Jiu-Jitsu recently. Comics I do, and I really enjoy them, but it's work now, so it's not as fun because it's 14 hours a day of grading and pricing and cleaning old comic books. And you know, honestly, my hobbies right now, aside from spending time with my little 5-year-old dude who's awesome, and my 21-year-old dude, is this music. Like, it doesn't have to be Sleepless. Like, it can be, like I said, taking drum lessons and practicing drums, practicing like ear training and learning how to identify musical intervals and chords by ear is kind of a challenge. And right now, I just feel hungry for that, just to keep learning as much as I can. And I feel like I've got it. There's only limited time in the day, so if I can put an hour a day into those kind of things, I'm good. 20 minutes here, 20 minutes there. So that's pretty much it. I mean, hobby wise, other than that, it's just family. Spend time with my wife, spend time with my kids, and doing that kind of stuff.
And I have a personal question.
Yeah.
I have the first edition of the Kiss comic. What's it worth?
Right. It's been jumping, actually. If it's in good shape, it's like $200.
Really?
Something like that. Yeah, yeah. I just paid 120 for one recently from a friend, just because I don't usually sell those when I get them. I've got several of them, just because I love it. I remember getting it as a kid, tearing it up. Made with real Kiss blood.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. That original one's good though. It's a couple $100. If it's in really high grade, it's even more. But comics are all about condition.
And I wanted to ask you as well, what's the best way to get merchandise from the band?
Our Bandcamp, probably, if you're in the States. If you're in Europe or other parts of far, from at least the albums, the music would be through Metal Warrior Records, since they're in the Netherlands. They're able to ship all that stuff cheaper. That we all know, it's crazy. I got pre-orders right away from Europe for the album. I'm like, I gotta ship it back to Sweden and Switzerland, like when the dude in the Netherlands can ship it to them. But anyway, and local people tell me they ordered out of the Netherlands. But our Bandcamp page, and we've got new shirts right now. I need to get the album done on one, but TJ did a fantastic design that is on. It'll be on the inside sleeve of the vinyl. It's for Mushroom Clouds at Night, and it's an old traditional, like, medieval woodblock design. It's crazy. You see this thing. My wife said I never want to see that again. And, I mean, it kind of says exactly what I said in the song. It's got like the Virgin Mary, like holding baby Jesus, and there's a big mushroom cloud river behind her, but it looks like old style like clouds, and there's the doves flying, and one's carrying a foot and one's carrying a hand. And then there's all these guys down praying on the ground below them, and then the bottom frame has two kids, like one laying across the other one's lap, and there's like fire in the background, whatever. And you don't know if they're sleeping or dead or waiting to die. And it's pretty emotive. I was like, oh my God, this says it all. And I showed it to my wife. She's like, I never want to see that. I was like, I'm like, okay, well, I guess it worked.
Mission
So,
accomplished, yes.
mission accomplished. So that shirt's coming out. And then a comic book artist actually named Blackie Shepherd, who did he worked on the comic book adaptation for the movie Pumpkinhead. He did a tarot card design for us. It's pretty badass. It's very metal. It's got Baphomet holding up Adam and Eve by the necks, and it's a tarot card for damnation. And so that was his inspired design. It's pretty cool. I like it a lot. So both of those are shirts, and they're being printed as we speak. The printing, the employees at the printing plastic company, the owner called me laughing, saying they refused to print the Baphomet shirt, so he has to come in after hours to print the shirts. I'm like, well, that'll be good in interviews.
Right.
They refused to print the shirt, so the owner had to come in and do it. He goes, hey guys, there can't be good in the world without a little darkness or whatever. And so anyway, so yeah, so the merchandise Bandcamp is really the way to go, I think, in the States.
And lastly, I wanted to ask you if you could give a message to your fans, what would that message be?
That's a good question. I mean, message to them, thank you so much for supporting the arts, for supporting Sleepless, for supporting, metal in general. I think metal is a huge blanket or umbrella of beautiful music, so much stuff in there. And I feel like we're in a wonderful time right now where people are more accepting of the melding of different styles, and they're not fully, but they're less concerned with being a specific niche. And keep your mind open, and just keep enjoying this beautiful art that we have.
Yeah, I think there's a camaraderie and a sense of family between metal fans more than any other genre. Because other genres, they like you today, tomorrow no one knows who you were.
Exactly, brother. I mean, I just went on the Monsters of Rock cruise. Look, I got my Heat shirt, and guess what? I can tell people, oh my God, one of my favorite bands of all time is Heat. These dudes out of Sweden that are doing 80s metal, like,
Sure.
and no one's like, what kind of poser, like, nobody cares. The Monsters of Rock guys are just obsessive about being on that cruise every year, and the bands, and I'm like, that's killer. I'm gonna retire from comics and stuff in the next year or two. I want shit I can do every year. My wife's like, hell yeah, go on the Monsters of Rock cruise every year. I'm like, hell yeah. And there's just so much cool stuff out there that can be influential. I mean, talk your ear off, dude. But and there was definitely a time where I wasn't wearing it on my sleeve that I loved Duran Duran, that I listened to Seal as like one of my biggest inspirations. I listened to Andrew McMahon and The Wilderness, that Andrew McMahon and The Wilderness, the band my wife loves. I went to a show. That's what made me decide to write a chorus. He came out, he started singing this song. He was up on the front of the stage, dude, sings this chorus. And I was like, why couldn't that be metal? And I just started typing on my phone lyrics, and I'm like, shit, dude, it's the inspiration's in the air. It's everywhere, and it's just music.
Good music is good music. I remember first time I heard, of all people, a guy said, hey, I got the new Dave Matthews album. I want you to hear it. I'm like, oh, Dave Matthews, I don't want to hear that shit.
Right.
And then he put it in, and I was like, wow, these guys are technically so sound.
Yeah.
And I was blown away by it because, you listen to Dave Matthews interview, the guy has no control of his normal speech, and you're like, how can this guy possibly sing? And
Yeah, I didn't know that.
yeah, he's every interview I've seen, he's been so fucked up he can't even talk.
Oh Jesus!
You know what I mean? And so I'm like, how's this guy even perform? And then I saw footage of him performing. I'm like, holy crap, man!
That's
Unreal. I
crazy.
can't the sentence, but he can sing like to beat the band.
Yeah, that's just it, man. We during the beginning of the pandemic, my wife and I built a sauna in our shed as like a project to do. And like I was like sitting in the sauna one day and I was listening to a Seal album, just kind of being meditative. And he has this lyric. He's like, wash my hands in dirty water. And I was like, wash my hands in devil water. And I use that. It's in, I forget what it's bite the hands that bleed or something, wash my hands in devil water. And I was like, that's it. I mean, like just idea, like an idea of like, I was like, this is like a cleansing thing. I'm feeling this cleansing, mood. And then from there, it just goes into a whole bunch of lyrics, like this whole song about just one idea, like this cleansing idea. And I'm like, okay, and just, yeah, it's just like you said, yeah, it's all around me. I feel like when I go in the studio, like tomorrow, I will not be able to listen. I do not listen to any metal on the way to the studio. Like the last few weeks, I've been obsessed with Sabotage, the first few Death albums, and uh, Cannibal Corpse again. Like that goes every few months, it seems like, and a few early black metal bands. And I've been listening to just a ton of metal. But on the way to the studio, like for today and tomorrow, like this morning was Mighty Mighty Boss Tones, and like tomorrow I'll have to listen to like Duran Duran all morning, like eating like a ginger sorbet before you go to your next meal. If I don't cleanse my palate, I will come in there, I'll start being derivative. I feel like I'll start sounding like other bands because my brain's in that headspace. I'm like, no, listen to Duran Duran, you'll go in there with fresh ideas. It might not work, but I mean that's the trick. I tell myself I'm like the bass player grabbing my crotch and spitting you 3 times or whatever. Like, I want to make sure that I'm writing the best I can. I don't want, no matter what, people are going to compare you to other people, which has been a fun little experiment, and or not experiment, but like reading all these reviews and like an anacrusis, an anacrusis. I mean, that band I'd never heard until 2 weeks ago because I got like 5 comparisons to them. I'm like, shit, I guess I better hear these guys. I'm like, oh, I kind of hear it. That's cool. Like, all my stuff comes from like Piggy from Voivod, Mike from Destruction, Denner Sherman, Merciful Fate. Just those are my obsessions. So metal wise, I mean, all my weird stuff comes from Voivod though. 9 chords, 7 chords, just Piggy stuff, But anyway. I digress.
Well, I wanted to thank you for taking time to speak with me. It's been an absolute pleasure talking with you.
Bob, man, it's a huge pleasure, dude. Yeah, and great interview. I mean, you got awesome questions and good flow. Sorry, I yak a lot, man. I know when you guys got to transcribe these to written form, it can get a little verbose because I love to talk. I mean, I can sit and talk for hours about music, because we just did that Monsters of Rock cruise. I was hanging out. I hung out with my friend Kelly Lemieux. He plays bass for Buck Cherry, and he was in Goldfinger for like 11 years. Anyway, we're like older, like sober guys, we sat till on that Monsters of Rock cruise till 3 a.m. every night. Blah, 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 about rock, metal. Remember these guys? What about those guys? It's like what's like, and I just can't be shut off. So I'll stop.
Well, you don't have to worry. I don't. I'm a one finger typer, so
Nice.
I don't. I'll send out a video of our interview, and I'll also do an audio version on my podcast.
Cool, man.
Very rarely. I don't like to do written interviews. My will of language is a barrier, but but I'm a old school one finger typer, so
I can appreciate that, brother. Yeah.
Take hours.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't want to have to do that with my talking.
Well, you take care, my friend, and I hope we can talk again real soon. Talk hopefully about a tour.
Absolutely. Yep. Next conversation. Cool, man. Stay in touch.
All right, you take care.
Thanks again. Cheers.
Cheers.
All right, bye.